Welcome back, artists. I'm Wyatt Paints, and this week I'm hopping into my time machine to take me back to the yesteryear of 2 months ago. 2 months ago, this week's sponsor SuperShark released a Valentine sculpt of Superman and the now superpowered Lois Lane. I, for one, think it's always the season of love, so I printed out the super date to make it today's project. Now, I've done Superman before, so this is familiar territory. What will be tricky is getting my layering back into good form. For about the last year, I've been focusing on exploiting dry brushing to do the majority of the work for me. And this is going to be a perfect project for me to knock off those cobwebs. So, meet me over at the painting table. I'm going to grab my brushes. Let's get started. First, introducing my new painting table. I've upgraded from the upcycled cardboard box to a nice solid piece of wood I got from my local DIY. My fellow carpenters will note I splurged and went with the 1/8 inch particle board. Yeah, flexing that YouTube cash. With a channel branding paint job, I hope this stands the test of time. Looking at the base, it seems like we have a solid oval of the moon with some stone chairs. For the surface, I'm starting with ash gray. Now, the moon's surface is a very reflective, almost white regolith silk, so I want to start really bright and then push the highlights from there. That said, a bit of brush abuse is incoming. It's the fastest way to push paint in this highly detailed surface. From here, I jumped right up to spaceship exterior. No inks or shades needed here. I want to keep this as light and bright as I can manage without actually using white. So leaning on Big Floof here to make sure it stays even was an easy choice. Now for these chairs. They certainly don't look like any kind of moon rock, so I assume Clark brought these and carved them himself. So romantic. Let's start with deep gray. I want to do something fun with the rocks, but I also want to start grounded, so a deep gray fits here. Plus, it gives me a nice contrast with the moon surface. Now, for a touch of color with field gray. This is a slightly green gray, as I want to give the idea that this is a kryptonite-esque otherworldly origin kind of rock. And here, I'm looking to get around 80% coverage. This will take some patience because I want to just ease into this green, nice and subtle. Now, to be a bit more overt with the green, by using scaly hide. Here, a whisper-light touch can feather this onto the peaks, giving a very interesting looking natural stone. As for this table, I imagine Clark made this from the same stone he made the chairs from, so I repeated all of the same steps here. For the final prop, we have this Milkshake. And it reminds me a lot of the superhero planet Hollywood that shows up in Kingdom Come. So I'm gonna say Clark picked up a Kryptonian caramel milkshake to split on the moon. Let's get started with Dark Emerald. I'm thinking this is one of those souvenir cup deals, sort of like a free kryptonite glass with purchase. And since I really want to try out some more of these Fanatic metallics, I said YOLO. To begin, I want to treat this like a typical silver metallic and start with a heavy dry brush over black. Then I swapped over to glittering green for a highlight. While the edge highlighting is pretty straightforward, a majority of this surface is a smooth cone, and I really don't have a set method to paint it, and just sort of feel my way through. Best advice for doing this for yourself is keep your additions as light as you can and check your work often. Once you like a look of a spot, leave it alone and work somewhere else, and then just keep working until you like it all. Next, arid earth. This is to base the cream pillowing out the top. Special care should be made to keep your cup edge clean. Now, for mummy robes, to lightly brighten the floofs of cream. But after adding this, I didn't really have the contrast I wanted. So I thinned down some light tone to reinforce the caramel shadows. And it's also a good idea to add a touch of this around the rim to mask the transition and look like extra caramel drizzled in the cup. Once dry, a very light touch up of mummy robes got the fluffs nice and creamy again. Finally, a bit of pure red on the straws to get that classic soda shop vibe. Before I get started on the super couple, I'd like to take a moment to thank my subscribers over on Patreon. Your monthly support is inching me closer and closer to the next channel upgrade, so I can't thank you enough. If you would like to join the painting pantheon, you'll find a link to my Patreon in the description below. Although, it would be awesome if Army Painter hits me up and sponsors the channel. It seems like a win-win to me. I use your paint a lot, and I'm adorable. What's not to love? But I know one company that does think I'm adorable. This week's sponsor, SuperShark. Not only do they have an impressive judgment of character, but they also create some highly detailed and well put together sculpts. If you're interested in getting this or any of the other amazing sculpts, be sure to check out their link below. For now, Clark and Lois are still holding their breath on the moon. Let's get back to it. Looking at the super couple, since their suits are so similar, it just makes sense to do them at the same time. And to get me going with the blues, dark sky. All that's needed is a solid base coat to tint all of the shadows a nice deep blue. And with a texture like this, a stiff bristle brush will help push that color in without needing to resort to brush abuse. For a mid-tone, ultramarine. I'm sticking with the stiff bristle brush here as it can give me extra control when it comes to placement of this highlight. I don't know how bright I want to take this, so it's best to just go slow and see what looks good. But I get the feeling I'm going to lean into higher levels of contrast than usual to get a more stylized look. Time to push forward by stepping up to crystal blue. With a blue this bright, there needs to be extra scrutiny on how much paint is on your brush and where you're touching the model. I like to start at the part of the muscle that would catch the most light and feather my stroke off the muscle, using its shape to dictate the fall off of the highlight. And be sure to put a bit extra on the bigger muscle groups of the thighs and arms. It's going to give them a bit extra pop. Finally, troglodyte blue. From the photos I found online, Lois usually has some lighter panels compared to Clark, but I wanted to do the cute matching outfits thing instead. But as a happy compromise, I opted to give Lois an extra peak highlight. To take on the reds, we start as usual with chaotic red. Like with the blue, I need an even coat to serve as my base shadow tone over the boots and capes. Warming up my reds next, Dragon Red. Now, reds can be a bit more temperamental compared to blues, at least that's how I see them. So this calls for Big Floof to do its thing and slowly buff on this highlight. Remember, you're not looking to push this into every crack. Let the surface guide the bristles where they need to skip. Finally, pure red. Again, I'm trying to buff the red on here and using a stroke similar to brushing flies off of a dessert. Using multiple thin passes, it's going to build up a super rich color without much effort. After putting the capes in place, they were looking good. Now time came for the dreaded yellow section, until I realized I could do what I want, and I swapped the yellow out for greedy gold. Yeah, I'm a rebel, just like Billy Idol. Thin down, this is going to take a few passes to cover up the blue, but then I just think about the time I'm saving by not using yellow, and a smile just creeps on my face as I paint layer after layer. Now it's time to step into some flesh tones for the skin, beginning with Tan Flesh and Barbarian for Clark. While they will have both fair skin, I want to add a bit more of a deeper tan for Superman. Soaking up those yellow sun rays can give you a tan. So to start with tan flesh just seemed right. And the first pass is gonna look rough over black, but once the second and third coat dries, it'll start looking the part. All dry and it looks like this. Nice. Time to switch it up with a 50-50 mix. Here I set up a light at a lower angle to help illuminate the areas that should be highlighted. Just paint where you see the shine. But just keep in mind that the reflection will change based on where you're holding it and where your head is. Finally, I came back with just Barbarian Flesh to get hyper focused on the peaks of the highlights. Again, my light is going to point me to where these need to go. Just paint the shine. For Lois, it was going to be the same process, except in this case, I started with Barbarian Flesh and highlighted to Cobalt Skin. I also extended the highlights a bit further, so Lois would have an overall softer appearance. And of course, can't forget about those hands. Moving on to the eyes, I wanted to try out a technique as eyeliner has always been a roadblock for me. To start, I laid down a chaotic red base and extended it up to the inside lip of the eyelids. Then, using a warm gray, I filled in the eyeball while maintaining a dark outline as evenly as I can manage. And boom, easy peasy eyeliner. For the eye color, I just dip back into the chaotic red because at this side, it'll just read as a dark amber brown. I followed this up with a couple of pips of white for a reflection. I did the same thing for Clark, but I think the mascara is a bit too much. That paired with his baby blues honestly makes me want to grab the eye bleach, but I'm gonna fill out the rest of the face before I decide on any repaints. To finish up these portraits, I blacked out their manes and cleaned up their hairlines and then pulled out dark gray. Jet black hair is one of those instances where I would use black and just highlight from there. Just use caution, or you might end up aging up your model unintentionally. For me, I just try to focus on areas that would grab reflections and leave it at that. And I don't want to forget about some lipstick on Lois. This is a date after all, so that calls for something striking. I started by outlining the lips in gloss black. Be super careful here, as an overspill will need a lot of work to fix. Just take your time and slowly work them into a pleasing shape. Then, with a dab of Dragon Red, slowly work out from the center. This is where you're going to show off the shape of her lips, so ease it out. Then, as a final touch, mix in a bit of pure red and just dab them on the peaks. Switching back to the chest emblems, I added a touch of thinned down sepia shade on each of them to knock down the shine and add a bit of definition. After which, Soup's got his S redded up and I called this one done. And wow, these came out great. You'll have to ignore how the cape is fitting there. I can't really fully glue it right now, so it's only tacked in, so that's on me. But just look at it, it came out pretty good. You know, it's always good to try new things, and I think I'll be trying out this eye technique again. But I think I'll be reserving it for just the ladies. It certainly has got me one step closer on tackling makeup. If you would like to give this model a try, be sure to use the link below and head on over to SuperShark to find this and many other models. They've been great to the channel as a longtime sponsor and been putting out bangers every month. But for now, I gotta get working on the next project. So, thanks for watching. Stay creative and always enjoy the process.